So one of those machines that I bought was like $9,000 and was doing like $22 to $2,500 a month. So my net payment of what would come to me off of all that would be like around like $750 or $800. So I was like, okay, my net payment is $750, $800. I'm going to break even on this in like less than a year. And then if I look at my return on that, like every year going over, I'm going to be making that. It's like 100% return. The reason why I was able to grow so quickly was I was able to turn one of those leads into 3 other locations by saying, hey, you have another property manager, you have a regional manager that oversees other properties that would like to get value from our amenity into those other buildings. And then it was just like, introduce me here to there. I would go look at those things, put the proposal together for that one, and then close it and go.
From 0 to 50 grand in monthly vending revenue in 16 months. What's up? Nick Loper here. Welcome to the Side Hustle Show, where we've been helping people make extra money since 2013. Today we're talking about the popular quote-unquote passive income business of vending machines and how my guest was able to scale up his operation to 30 locations and over 50 grand in monthly revenue in under a year and a half. From H&H Vending, Anthony Kolodziej. Welcome to the Side Hustle Show.
Hey, Nick. Thanks for having me.
You bet. Stick around in this one. We're going to learn how to negotiate your first vending machine placements, the right locations that make the best fit there, the startup costs involved, and just how passive and profitable the business really is if you're constantly having to restock products. But Anthony, take me back to the beginning, not that long ago, a year and a half ago, and you're thinking, why I ought to get into this vending machine business. I'm going to turn some snacks and drinks into some monthly cash flow.
I've been in the real estate industry since like 2009. And I was like talking with my wife, and I'm like, my kids were 3 and 5 at the time. And I'm like, you know what? I've had the real estate business. I've been doing this here for, 15 years. I go, I really want to do something for like the kids, and I want to teach them like entrepreneurship and like work ethic. Now that I'm making this transition from this other real estate job I was doing, I go, we should look for some type of business that I could, put the same blood, sweat, and tears that I'm putting in on the real estate side, and put it into basically a business that could be like a recurring income stream. Because with real estate, obviously there's the highs and lows and peaks and valleys. So, once you sell a house or flip a house, it's like, okay, got to do it all over again. I came a guy across Mike Hoffmann on Twitter, and he had this vendingpreneur community. And I go,
Mr. Passive on Twitter, right?
Mr. Passive, yes, exactly. And I was like, vending, interesting. I go, and then I started like reading more about it. And then I was like, you know what? I go, my wife's name is Taylor. And I go, you know what? I think this could be a really good business that we could do. Not a lot of upfront capital initially. We could grow it into something passively, and do it with the kids. I can teach them entrepreneurship and work ethic. And I think that would be a really good idea for us to kind of go full blown. So it was like 2-3 weeks. I was going back and forth with Mike and his team, and I ended up joining this community like end of September. And I just went full blown, like all in at the time. Fast forward, 15 months later, we did, with it just being the end of February, a couple of days ago, we were over $65,000 in revenue, wow. And I'm looking to be at over 75,000 by the end of April, because I have other machines that have just got installed this past week, and I got 3 more that are going in, 3 locations going in like next week. So,
yeah. And so that's the name of the game, is stacking locations and machines. And what's your take on this? Like, is there a place for these one machine, two machines, like, the toe dip? Hey, I want to get my kids, some exposure to supply and demand and cash flow and product inventory turnover. Or it's like, do you need to go big? Like, do you need dozens of machines to make it into like a full-time thing? Well, a full-time thing, yes, but just to be able to operate.
Yeah, that's a great question, Nick. And, my story is different from like everybody else's story. Like I said, I ended up joining Mike's vendingpreneur community. And when I was in there, I talked to a lot of other different people that had different routes. So I was kind of like treating them as like my board of directors. But there was a guy down in Texas. He's a high school football coach and a teacher. And he has only 4 locations, and he's doing $20K a month.
Wow.
So you could be very selective with your locations of like how, like, depending on your goals or what your time is. Like, hey, I'm a fireman or I'm retired. I just want some supplemental income,
Yeah.
or I'm a teacher and I want to teach my kids to do this. They're 18 and 19 and you got some built-in stockers already and stuff. So it all depends on like what
Yeah.
your goals are. So for me, when I first got into the business, like I was like so antsy. I was like, oh my God, I got to get a location. Let's do this. Let's go. Let's go. But the biggest thing I tell people now when they're going to start out something, I go, be poised, wait for the right location. 3 or 4, like if it takes 4 or 5 months to wait for the right location, wait for it. Don't just do your, let me use a sports analogy here. Don't use your spring training or training camp and like football on a location that is not going to be the best. That's what
Mm.
happened with me. When I did it, I ended up getting a location that was 5 minutes from my house. And unfortunately, I was only been doing like $700 a month because there were certain questions that I didn't maybe ask in the beginning of when I was basically qualifying that property, when I first initially went. For example, like
I don't know.
what,
$700 a month is not nothing.
well, $700 a month revenue. So once
Yeah.
you deduct your cost of goods and your fees and all this stuff, usually your cost of goods, you want to shoot from like anywhere from like around 35. You want to be like 35%. If you're growing exponentially, like kind of how I am, you're buying so much inventory because you're constantly refilling up new machines. I've been averaging a cost of goods of maybe like anywhere between like 40 and 43%, but like once I plateau, my goal is to be 35 to 33-ish% cost of goods, um, at that point.
Okay. So just in raw numbers, like sell something for $1, that means you bought it for 30 cents.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yep. So I try to shoot for margins for drinks and chips. I try to shoot for 65% plus. Candy can't get there. Cocoa has gone up in price, and just like with everything with inflation, candy is going to probably be like one of your worst margins, like you're probably going to be like 50 to 57% on your candy. And then what I've been doing is since I've been going into a lot of class A luxury apartments, a lot of these 7-Elevens and Walgreens and, um, just have been closing,
Okay.
and so what I've been doing is I've been going in there with my pitch and saying to these property managers and say, hey, you know what? I'm like, I'm also going to, it's not old school machines. I'm using these AI powered smart markets now. And I'm saying, hey, I could put incidental items in there, Tylenol, toilet paper, paper towels, Visine, Mucinex, NyQuil, uh, Tide Pods, Bounce Sheets, whatever.
Okay. Yeah. 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 More
And
than
those are,
just snacks and drinks. Sure.
yeah, and those are like around, those are a little bit like around a smaller margin, maybe like 45 to 50%. But I put it in there because when I go in there to pitch a location, it's a value add that maybe a certain person, a certain operator that has machines in there right now, they can't offer,
Okay.
so they see the value in me.
Okay. Let's go back to this first location, the one that you
Yes.
said is doing $700 a month. It's super close to home. It sounds like business with training wheels, like a low risk kind of a thing.
Yep.
I could stock it myself as
Yep.
as need be. What You don't have the machine yet. I imagine you get a yes from the property manager. What's the
Correct.
conversation like? Hey, have you thought about Mike was on the show episode
Yeah.
599 last year. You go back and listen to that one. But he was like, don't say the V word. He's like, lead with like modern amenities. Don't say vending. But what's your conversation like with this building or with this operator?
Yeah, vending, it's out of my vocabulary. I say it's they're smart markets is basically what they are. They're AI smart markets, and that's what I lead with. And then this is going to be amenity for your workforce. This is going to be an amenity for your building. Because if you don't want it, I'm going to go down the street anyway, and I'm going to talk to the other competitor, and if they say yes, that's an amenity that they're going to have and that your building won't have. So it's a competition type business, especially like like in luxury real estate, but like in manufacturing, or that's the one warehouse that I'm in at right now. They want their people to be satisfied and work
Yeah.
hard, and it's a nice amenity for them.
Was it an apartment building, that first location?
No, the first location. So this is where I made the mistake. So whoever's listening and wants to start your own vending route, make sure you qualify the location thoroughly. So when I went there, they told me they had 2 shifts and it was 75 employees. So I assumed that it was 75 employees for both shifts. Well, it turned out to be that there were 70 employees for the first shift, and then for the night shift, there were 4. So that's what kind of I was thinking that this thing was going to be a 150 employee place, and it was just a mistake on my part. You live and you learn, but make sure you're thorough and you ask those questions and make sure you understand what how many people are working there. And especially if you come across like one of these commercial buildings or office buildings, what's the vacancy? Okay, well, that's great. But how many of these suites and these people are working from home? How many of these companies inside this office building are supplying goods for free, because it might be like a wealth management, team or office in there that has maybe 100 employees that go in there, but they're supplying everything for their employees for free, protein bars, water, all that stuff. That's going to deter them from going there. So just make sure you're very thorough with like asking your questions once you go there, just so you're qualifying the property correctly, because they might say, hey, we're 80% occupied, but if they're only reporting into work 2 days a week, it's not a lot of foot traffic.
Yeah, 80% times 40% of the week is a little bit lower. Is there a sweet spot that you found in terms of building size, number of residents, number of workers, or before anything lower and just like that doesn't really make sense?
If I'm evaluating a property site, it's got to have minimum for residential real estate. It's got to have a minimum of 200 units. Okay. And I don't like garden apartments. So I don't want like the machines being in a clubhouse and then there's 800 units that are like a 4-block radius and then people have to walk to the clubhouse. I don't like those. Okay. I need a building that it's all one building. So the elevator takes you down to the vending machine, it takes you up. You can't walk outside because, again, convenience. Manufacturing facilities, I would want to be in there with at least 150 employees. If it's an office building, I'll tell you, I've been looking at some of the most beautiful skyscrapers in downtown Chicago for the past 8 months, and I have had a ton of meetings with a lot of them down there because I've just been getting referred to them. But I would go through the same questions now of when I'm asking them, okay, what's the vacancy? Oh, 60%. How many people are working from home? Oh, well, it's Mondays and Thursdays there's about maybe 1,000 people through the turndial, and then maybe Fridays, there's maybe 300. I'm like, okay, so we're working with like around 2,300 people a week. So times that by 4, we're like around 9,200, for the month. It's like, I'm like, all right. I'm like, but I don't know like how good it's going to do. And a lot of these commercial buildings, they have these empty 7-Elevens or these bookstores that they used to have where they were cooking before COVID. They got all these empty spaces, but I just don't want to be the guinea pig. So what I've been doing is, and I haven't got anyone to take one yet. Mike has been a lot better than me. He's actually had some people that have subsidized. So what I do is with those commercial buildings, just so I'm not losing in the beginning, is that I will go in there and then I will offer them and I'll say, here, I don't know what your location is going to go ahead and do. I go, but I need and I'll work my numbers backwards with like what I need to be profitable on that location. And I'll just say, for an example, I need to make $2,000 in revenue. That way I could cover my cost of goods, my stocker, any spoilage,
Is monthly or weekly?
Monthly. Yeah. Okay. So if the machine, without me knowing it, if it goes in there and it does $1,300 a month, okay, I'm going to invoice you for the difference of $700 where your building or your owner is going to have to pay. I know you guys want these amenities and stuff like that, but I can't take that risk of being a guinea pig here and having me lose money. And then I have to move the machine for relocation and all that. And like, I don't win, it's not, it doesn't set me up for success. I haven't had anybody take me up on that yet. Mike has maybe done 2 or 3 of those out for him out in the West, out in Oregon by you guys. Like he has done, like he's been like a master at it.
Got it. So there's the pitch. It's like, look, we could offer these amenities, snack, drink, food service ourselves as the business owners, or we could hire Anthony to do it, and we understand he's got to make some money and this is his minimum, and if it doesn't hit that minimum then we're gonna have to subsidize it, but it's still worthwhile because it keeps our employees, keeps the tenants happier.
That's
the pitch
absolutely.
anyways.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, you going into build, I asked Mike the same question. Like,
Yeah.
if this building has been around for 10, 15, 20 years, like, have they literally never thought about this before? It's hard to imagine an office
Well,
building or even a residential building that doesn't already have this vending machine in the lobby or in the, elevator bay.
what I have found out in this business is extremely archaic. These property managers, majority of them had operators in there, but they just couldn't get a hold of them or they weren't stocking it. So what I do is when I go into an appointment, I tell them, hey, I'm local. You could call me. You're going to call this cell phone number. You're going to get me. Okay. And I'm going to get back to you right away. When you're dealing with these property managers, these people that have decisions they have to make, they don't want another headache of chasing you down as a vendor, and that because they're already doing that and dealing it with all these other fires that they're dealing with through the building. They're dealing with the painter, the scaffolder, the window company, all these other different trades that they're dealing with. If you just call and you give them a nice experience of customer service back, it's refreshing to them. So when I go look at a property, I put a proposal together. I take pictures and video. I send it over to my mock-up guy. He gets it over to me within 24 hours, and I send them a proposal within 24 hours. And every single time when I do that, they are floored away of how quickly they got that proposal. So get back to people quickly, set expectations from the beginning. A lot of these, like I said, a lot of these property managers, they're worried about when is it going to be stocked because it hasn't been regularly stocked. So I go in that first meeting and I set up the expectation. I tell them, I go, here, when we sign up, I'm going to let you know what day your property is going to be stocked on. So then that way, if you're getting down to like 4 Cokes or 3 Snickers, I don't need to have 30 property managers texting me, hey, it's getting low. I've already set the expectation up knowing that, hey, your machine's going to be filled up on Tuesdays. So if it's Monday or Sunday and it's low, yours is going to be back. I mean, we're going to be refilling it shortly. So they know I'm coming, setting that expectation. And I let them know after the first month, if I feel like your machine needs to be stocked twice a week or 3 times a week, we'll make the adjustments in our route schedule and we'll make sure that it's going to be filled.
Okay. So you find a lot of time you're conquesting market share from some legacy providers that have gotten you gotten complacent, or they're not answering the phone, they're not performing the way that you would like for somebody who's new to the business, who's young and hungry, who wants to go out and get it with a more modern experience or more modern machine.
100%. Because a lot of the locations that I go into, some of them had the same machines that I had in, but the other half, they had maybe the old school coil machines that maybe when me and you were growing up that we would see. It wasn't like the swipe tap.
Banging on it.
Yeah, exactly.
Come on.
It was like, so now I go in, I show exactly now these new machines that I have, and they're blown away. They're blown away.
So that's what's in the proposal. The proposal says this is the machine that we're going to use. You can check out the specs, the model number, what it could potentially hold in terms of inventory. It says this is where we're going to, this is when we're going to come by. Your restocking day is Tuesdays, and here it is, sign on the bottom line. Are they looking for concessions from you in terms of, well, you're going to take up 12 square feet of our floor space, we're going to charge you rent for that on a monthly basis, or we're going to charge you a percentage of sales? Like what's typical in terms of that arrangement? So
usually there'll be a Revshare agreement that I'll give them. When I go into there, when I first initially thought when I got in this business, I'm like, do I give Revshare? Do I not? But I don't need Anthony 2.0 coming down the line and offering Revshare to all my buildings and trying to boot me out. A year
That's
down
true.
the
There's
line.
always another person coming down the line.
Exactly. After I just spent $400,000 on equipment, this past year. But like what I'm saying is, I go in there and I say here, I offer it from them to the beginning of a Revshare, and because I want to view it as a partnership. If I'm doing the job of what I'm doing and I'm constantly evolving and I'm making certain changes and I'm doing different things there, like with the machines and trying out new products, and I'm just I tell everybody I'm a very collaborative person. I don't care what it is to put into these machines. I don't care. Like I will put whatever. I have my variety that I put in there initially because I tell everyone it's like dating. It's like a month or so until you kind of learn that building. What do they like? Do they like Pepsi? Do they like Coke? Do they like Doritos? Do they like Cheetos? Like do they like more protein? Do they like Kind bars? as you learn over the month or two, as you get to know the building, you start doubling up on those items. There's a QR code for each location that's sent out on a flyer. So if somebody has a suggestion, that person, that resident could scan that QR code and they could go ahead and send that back to me, and my staff gets it, and we review those weekly, and then we make those changes, on certain those machines. If somebody's got a request for a La Colombe black coffee, I'll go in there and I'll take out one of the drinks that are maybe not selling. Maybe the Pepsi isn't selling, and I'll just replace it the following week and put it in there.
Okay. That's kind of cool to crowdsource that wisdom a little bit. Yeah, you can take a stab at the beginning, or this is what we're going to put in. Yeah. And then you get some data pretty quickly if you got 200 residential units to say, well, what's actually moving here? And then take out the bottom 10%, bottom 20%, try something new.
Exactly. No, absolutely. And then basically that's kind of like what I do. So if I get those suggestions, I'll review those weekly, and then I basically do a review of all the machines, basically monthly.
Okay. On the Revshare side, what's typical if you're playing with, those 3 to 5%, 3 to 5%. Yeah. So when I go in there, and it's of gross sales, because if you do it off profit, profit could get like a little, it's a little tough. It's a little, but so like not a ton, but it's just something to throw the property management company, or throw the
owner.
owner.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Yeah. It's more about, it's more about them getting a little bit of something back. They feel validated that they're getting something for return for this amenity,
Because the alternative is they could just do it themselves. And I've been reviewing some like pro forma, like real estate syndication type of documents, and there's a line item on there for like laundry and vending. Like they count on this as the investment group as part of their revenue. And so there's some segment of the building owner population is like, no, we'll just keep that in-house. We'll keep, all that margin. But there's another segment, like the kind that you're catering to, is like, we don't want to deal with the logistics of product and restocking and machine maintenance or anything like that. We'll just, hey, you want to give us 5%? Cool. You deal with it.
Yeah, they don't, because a lot of the people that I've experienced with is that they just have so many fires that they're putting out, fix this punch list on this unit here, this move in there, like all this stuff. So like I am, there's just a lot of, fires that they're putting out, and to have them focus on restocking, that is just something that it's like the ROI is not there for them. That's not the best use of those property managers' time.
Got it. Okay. So you mentioned, you kind of alluded to this equipment cost here. What does a vending machine cost? What's your take on financing versus buying versus new versus used? Like lots of different routes that you can go here.
I have like 5 different machines, which is kind of hectic because now I'm dealing with 5 different operating systems in their back end, and trying to have them all communicate to each other with me just pulling reports and all that stuff as well too. So it's a little bit of a pain in the butt, but I'm working through it. It's not like hard, and it's like so much like extra work, but it is, it is a nuisance a little bit. So
okay, like in contrast to like the Southwest model, where we're going to fly one type of airplane, so any mechanic can work on any plane, like that kind of thing. Versus, okay, it adds just a little bit of complexity
for sure.
Okay.
Yep, absolutely. So, like I have a Futura combo machine, which it might be like one of those ones with like the coil, and that one takes cash. Those I have 4 of those machines at a shelter, and those cost me like around $5,000, and I bought those refurbished. Okay. Brand new, they would probably go for $6,500, I think is the new pricing as of 2025. The micro markets, I have 3 of those. When I say micro market, those are like those open markets, honest policy, people could check out at a kiosk, and those roughly, and I'd have to build and put those together, and those run anywhere from like 8 to like $9,000 of what those are. But in those items, you got to look because you have some theft, so it adds a little bit to my guy when he goes to stock it, because one of our processes are, when he goes to restock that micro market, he stocks the whole unit, and then he has to go and verify all the inventory that is there, every single item. And then if there's 10 Cheetos that says on the system, but there's only physically 8, he has to change it to 8, because what happened to those other 10? Well, somebody probably stole it.
Yeah.
So those are the micro markets. I have Stockwells, which are an AI smart machine. Those run like around like $8,000, like 80, like $9,000 probably once it's delivered with freight. And then the newest and latest machine that I've been installing, I've installed 33 of them within the past 4 months, has been these micromarts. So they are a refrigerator. They're AI powered machines, work like a Stockwell, but they hold more inventory. But they actually have a video digital board that runs on the machine. So, which is very powerful for me because like I can run ads on there is what I'm feeling like what I can do down the line once I have the data, and that could be additional revenue that I could get in without even like I haven't even tapped into yet. And they're
Sounds
just like,
fancy.
yeah, no. And dude, when I was installing one of these last week in the Fulton Market area, which is like an emerging area, like in the West Loop in Chicago, like it's like where Google has their space and there's new buildings being built all the time over there. The property manager was doing a tour, owner's tour, and I was installing them. And
Oh, okay.
when he was walking, when one of the people were walking by, they like looked at it, they took a picture and everything like that, and then, because they couldn't believe what they were seeing. It's not like anything that they have seen. It's a really good looking machine. So, property manager comes around the corner there, gives me a fist bump, because I made him look good on his tour.
Nice. What do those things run you?
So those with freight, they are like around like 12K on there, so they're a little bit more expensive, but I'm counting on the ad space that I could potentially be selling down the line once I have the data in front of me. Hey, I'm at a 500 unit building. I've had, there's a monthly I have over 800 transactions. There's been this amount of dollars, and then, hey,
Yeah.
Coke, Pepsi, Chicago Cubs, you guys are playing the Cardinals this week. Okay. You want to put, something, an ad space on here for $100 a month or $50 a month, and run it.
Okay. Yeah. Now you're in the media business. All of a
Exactly.
sudden,
Right.
got a little mini billboard here for you.
That's what I'm hoping. I mean, that's my goal there, to kind of really increase the revenues on those machines. So like that is my goal. So next year, hopefully I'll have a better idea about how that went.
Okay. This is helpful. So now we kind of, at the risk of doing public math, which I've sworn off doing, but it's kind of this upfront capital in equipment and inventory, and then a payback period of a number of months or potentially years if it's a slow location. But like, how do you think about a winning location, or what's kind of a target ROI if you think about it that way in terms of the payback period on one of these machines?
With me being initially started, I wanted to increase my cash flows right away on these routes that I had. Cash flow was very important to me. So I actually ended up paying some of my first locations cash, just so I didn't have a finance payment. And that way I was able to increase like my cash flow net. I wouldn't have to factor that,
Sure.
So one of those machines that I bought was like $9,000 and was doing like $22 to $2,500 a month. So my net payment of like what would come to me off of all that would be like around like $750 or $800. So I was like, okay, my net payment is $750, $800. I'm going to break even on this in like less than a year. And then like, if I look at my return on that, like every year going over, like I'm going to be making that, it's like 100% return. So I'm like,
after it's paid off. I mean, there's, depreciation, there's maintenance involved, I imagine, but right. You've covered your expenses, and then it's all gravy.
Yeah. Then it's all gravy. And then like, I'm running the numbers. I'm like, okay, here, it's like each year it just goes up 100% return. And then obviously there might be maintenance and it might not go up as high each year as that. But so when I was looking at the numbers, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm like, I have to like, I'm making like 8% over here. I'm like, I'm just going to take my money out and then just invest it into my machines.
Right,
it's like a better return.
100% return potentially.
Yeah, exactly. So that's the way I looked at it, initially. Now what I've done, what I did is that since I was growing, I leveraged like financing capabilities, so some of these places had financing options. So what that meant was it would be like 0% down, and then they would finance it over 60 months, and then maybe be like a 12% interest note, and then maybe that machine would cost me like 160 or $175 a month. But if I'm making $1,500, $1,600, the 160, 175, it really wasn't, the end of the world, like for me to go ahead and make that payment. Cause now I got extra cash where I can go and reinvest back into the business by just, buying inventory, building out the warehouse and all that stuff as well too, which I'll kind of talk about like how my transition went from like me actually like growing, and then when I actually hired my first person and like when I actually did that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's kind of like where I was at with in regards to like evaluating these things, if I should pay cash or if I should go ahead and finance it. I will say, besides those first couple machines that I paid cash, I financed every single one since. That's
Okay.
where.
No, this is really helpful because yeah, I think when we hear $400,000 in equipment costs, like people like
Yeah.
the
Where
jaw
am I
kind of
coming
hits
up
the
with
floor.
that at? Yeah.
But there are different creative options. Think about your return on monthly cash flow, right? If you said, oh, my financing payment on this machine is 175, $200 a month, and I'm clearing, call it 300 even in monthly profit on maybe $1,000 in sales. Like if you've got those, that's even like really low margins.
Mhm.
You're 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 paying for the machine, you're paying for your inventory, and even if you're breaking even for the duration of that payment period, like you're adding equity to the business, which is another really interesting thing. It's like,
Yep.
yes, there's this monthly, semi-passive cash flow play, but there's also like, okay, now if I've got this route that's doing 50, 60 grand a month, like there's a multiple that another vending operator would come in and buy that from you. Did you consider buying existing routes, like to grow through acquisition, if from that old tired operator that just wanted out, or has it all been kind of new conquest or new placements?
No, but I actually bought one in downtown Chicago. There was a kid through the community, Mike's community, that was moving back home, and I basically bought it from him, and we transitioned him out as he moved back home, and I basically took over his route. So when I joined his community in like October of like 2023, he has like a lead generation service and stuff like that. So I like paid for him to handle all that stuff. So as I was doing that, I was doing pop-ins, hitting the ground and everything. Like it was very like light for me, like in the beginning. Like I got some leads, but like they weren't really like good locations to do it. And then like February of 2024, it just like all happened like a waterfall. Like every property manager was answering the email campaigns that his team set up, and it was like boom, 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 boom. And I was like, what the? So I went to every one of those. Yeah, it took me off guard. So I went to every one of those meetings and I closed them. Now, I live an hour and a half away from the city of Chicago. So I didn't want to build a business model where I had to go down to the city. I wanted to build it out by my house, and I wanted to do it within like 25 minutes of driving. Didn't work out like that. So I pivoted, in my business, and I ended up getting a storage unit downtown. Started off in an 80 square foot unit, went to a 150 square foot unit. And then we just like in September of last year, we went to a 700 square foot unit spot. But, when I went into those meetings with those property managers, I went in there and I closed every single one of them. And then what I did was, the reason why I was able to grow so quickly was I was able to turn one of those leads into 3 other locations by saying, hey, you have another property manager, you have a regional manager that oversees other properties that would like to see get value from our amenity into those other buildings. And then it was just like, introduce me here to there. I would go look at those things, put the proposal together for that one, and then close it and go.
So turning one customer into 2, turning one lead into 3. Say again what how are you incentivizing those people to introduce you to other property managers?
So like going back to the Revshare, like people would talk about it and say, hey, will you offer Revshare? Yeah, I do. Well, and then what I would say is like, okay, it doesn't start until 6 months after, because I have a huge upfront cost of like buying the machines and everything like that. I'm like, so what I'll do is I'll start Revshare after 6 months, but I will cancel that out and expedite the Revshare for you, if you refer me to over 3 other sister properties that you have within your network. And they're like, oh, well, we'll take it. Some of them jump on it. Some of them don't. Majority of them did. And then I was able to get into these other, locations relatively quickly and kind of grow the route pretty quick.
Do you find that, is that just a virtue of like podcasters know other podcasters, property managers know other property managers, or is it just like, well, this ownership group just has other buildings around the city?
It's more of property manager, of how many property manager, like that property manager, the company that they work for, how many buildings do they manage?
Yeah. Okay.
Basically, and there's some of them out there that manage 700,000 properties throughout the United States. There's other ones that manage 500,000. So, you kind of, but there's also other ones that are like smaller, which are good, that you can go in and they might have 20 properties and you could gain access to all 20 of those. So it all depends.
Yes. And then you have a warm lead versus a completely cold call or cold email to some random property manager. It's like, hey, coworker or your peer around the corner, said we ought to get in touch and we can start that conversation. All right. At what point do you bring on somebody to help stock these things? It sounds like you're spending a lot of time on the business development side.
Yeah.
Meetings with property managers, dealing with the higher level type of stuff. But at the same time, like, oh shoot, we're sold out of Snickers on 3rd Street. So now I got to go over here. It's like, talk to me about the logistics maybe early on and then what that kind of has transitioned to today.
Absolutely. So my first machine was installed of December of 2023. I then had a bunch of these ones. I had another one installed in January 23 or 24, and then another one in March of 24. So I had 3 that were up and running, like out in the western suburbs, like by me, that I was handling, and I was basically using the third car garage out of my house for this, which my wife, God bless her, she's been unbelievably supportive and amazing, throughout this whole process, but. She was like, okay, I don't know if I want to make this into our warehouse as our garage. So I had to battle that stuff for a little bit. But anyways, so then once I started growing into the city, and then when I bought that route in May of 2024, I had them still stock the route in May for me. So it was good because it gave me like time to get my stuff settled down there in the city, find a storage unit, which was a pain in the butt, because a lot of these Life Smart and Life Cubes and Life Storage facilities, they don't allow you to have delivered food there because they don't want infestation. So I was actually able to find a place that was basically like a shared office space that hosted weddings and stuff like that. So they didn't care about food, and they had a loading dock and everything. So I was thinking down the line with me growing this, I need to find something with a loading dock. So if there's a pallet that's going to be dropped off once my route gets big enough, like I need those tools and that accessibility eventually down the line. So that way I'm not jumping to another location.
Okay. Are you at that point now ordering like from, I don't know, from corporate or like a distributor? What happened? Like, how do you get the stuff?
Yeah. So what I did was, so originally, I was buying all the stuff in the big box stores, Mike, but what he did was he actually went with like the mothership, since that community has grown so much, and he basically negotiated distributorships with all these different companies. And he went there with the volume basis of the community. So it was great. So what happened was we went to this one distributor, and then now I could have pallets being dropped off at my warehouse now, because now where my route is at, like I order a lot of inventory weekly, so last month's cost of goods for me when I did 65,000 was like $27,000. In cost of goods. Again, a higher number because I installed so many machines. So I had to install and stock so many machines that were bare. Right. Now that number will come down once, and everything
once
like that.
It's stabilized. Yeah,
exactly. So what happened was I started interviewing people last year in June. I was stocking all the stuff myself in June. Mike really pushed me because Mr. Passive is like, hey, you can't be stocking these machines. You're not saying I'm not good enough for a 25-hour job, but like my skill set, I should be using it and focusing on stuff that's $800 or $900 or $1,000 per hour. I had to focus on business development and growing the route.
Yeah.
So he's like, but I'm like, Mike, I can't like afford it, because I won't be in the red for a little bit, with bringing on a guy and all this stuff. And he's like, just do it. I'm like, all right. So I did it. I went out there, I posted an ad, and I was interviewing people. And I was interviewing people based off of their car and their van. And do you have a van? Do you have a truck? Because I needed somebody to put all these tow containers like in there.
Uh-huh.
So I'm telling Mike, and he goes, Anthony, just buy a van. I go, oh, Mike, I've talked to you in 2 days. and
Yeah, every time I talk to you, you're costing me money.
You've cost me maybe like 30 grand here, with a van I got to buy now and all this stuff. But you know what? I bought in, and he goes, you know what, Anthony, you have to, because how are you going to grow the route if you're going to be stocking and doing these machines 6 hours a day? When are you going to do it? You're never going to see your family. It's going to be like another job for you.
Yeah, the driver that you hired because he had a van leaves for whatever reason, and then you're back to ground zero.
Yeah, back to ground zero. So I bought the van. I bought one of those Ford Transit Connect vans. It had like 103,000 miles on it. I bought it, put zero down. It was like a $300 a month monthly payment. Car insurance is maybe like $175 or something like that. So I bought it. Then I went back to interviewing people, and I was able to interview people based on the best quality candidate that I could get instead of worrying about if they had a van or a truck. So I was able to do that. And I ended up hiring somebody, brought them on. It's nice that the facility that I have my warehouse at, they allow me to park in their parking lot. Now it costs me $100 a month, but that way I have the car parked there, on site for my guy to use.
Yeah.
And at that time I had like 2,500 or like 2,000 units I had at the time. And
sorry, that is like SKU or like rows of product in a machine?
No. So when I mean 2,000 units, I meant like 2,000 like luxury apartment units over 4 buildings or 5 buildings at the time.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Got it.
Like one building was 200 units. The other one was 250. One was 600, so I had 2,000 units. So I needed to hit the pavement, start going around and, start building that up, so just this past month, I've eclipsed 10,000 units total across my whole locations. And I have like 36 locations actually now. Well, I'm counting the 3 that are going to be delivered and it will be installed here this week. But, I would have not been able to add 8,000 units to my route if I was picking and stocking. So thank goodness I took his advice and I leaped. And it sucked. I mean, I was nervous about it initially, but I jumped and I went after it, I don't want to say like a cliche saying, but like, you got to start being like, comfortable with being uncomfortable. And I know that's a cliche that a lot of people say. And, literally that's what I did. And I leveraged myself and I went after it.
Yeah. It's kind of hold your breath for this little short-term period, and it's like that in a lot of side hustles where it's like I can kind of see the light at the end of the tunnel and I know it's going to be uncomfortable to get there, but hopefully it's a short-term thing, and I believe in the business. I believe we can get there, but it's not going to be fun for a minute.
And it's going back to that cliche. Like I talked to somebody the other day and he's like, hey Anthony, I really want to get on. IT guy. And he told me this, and he was like, I'm an IT guy and I'm an introvert, and, do you have to be really good at sales? Like when you go out and all this stuff. And I'm like, here, man, I'm like, you're going to, not saying you have to be the best at sales. I'm like, my pitch now is totally different from when I started 15 months ago. But I asked him, I go, are you married? You have a partner? He goes, yeah, I'm married. I got 2 kids. I go, well, dude, I'm like, you had to sell your wife on marrying you. I'm like, you did some type of sellability. You had some type of sales quality to convince her to know that she wanted to spend the rest of your life with you. I go, dig down. You have the ability, and just know that it's a numbers game, and you're going to hear a lot of no's before you hear a lot more yeses. And you're just going to you have to get through it. And it's just a numbers game, brother. And you're just gonna have to work through it. So,
what kind of common objections do you hear from property managers when you are making the initial outreach, or even after you sent your proposal?
With them, it's always like follow-ups, because vending is not like their first priority. They're dealing with so much other stuff that's going on there throughout the building. So there'll be times where I send a proposal and, I won't get a signed one back for a month and a half or 2. There's one right now that I've sent over last July, and I'm still popping in and just touching base and doing all these different things monthly, because that's the name of the game in sales and pipeline. You just got to build your pipeline up, and then once one says yes, one will say another yes. I mean, I got an email last week from somebody, hey Anthony, I talked to you back in October, when can I get the machines in? I'm like, okay, sounds good. Nice to hear from you,
Yeah.
but like, so it does take a little bit, it does take some follow up. It does take some sales strategy of like how you want to go ahead and follow up. You don't want to be following up with people saying, hey, did you get my proposal? Where are you at now? Like I always follow up and I always want to add like some type of value. Hey, I just talked to the CEO and I'm going to be ordering machines this week. Can I get that signed proposal back where I can kind of add you to that order?
Hmm.
Creating some type of urgency, doing some type of different type of sales follow-ups to kind of always add value. I'm not a big person of like, hey, when are you going to get it back? Because like if somebody reads that, like I know when I read it, when I'm so busy, like it's just like, I'm like, all right, I'll respond back to you later. Like there was no value, but it's like, hey, I made a new vendor. I'm going to be installing crumble cookies in our machines now. What? This guy's going to be installing crumble cookies? Oh my God, that's so great. This is when, and then they respond.
Okay. Have you been able to get the kids involved at all?
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. So on the weekends, we do our Costco runs and we do the picking in the garage. I've actually brought them to some locations with me where I actually stocked them myself because the stocker at the time couldn't stock it for me. So
Yeah.
I go, come on, kids, let's go. Let's get in the car and let's go. And I got photos of them doing it, and I'll tell you that was the main mission for me was to teach them entrepreneurship and work ethic when we first started. And then they were 3 and 5 at the time, and they're now going to be 5 and 7 here,
Hmm.
come in May. But just their transformation of their minds, of like how they think about things, like within regards of value. We used to walk into Target all the time. We used to always be like, okay, we got to get one, get something, get something. Now I taught them about like coupons and discounts, and then they would look at like, hey, maybe this could be good something value for the vending machine. And then, something that I did not, realize that they just got so obsessed with vending machines. So, like we're watching Despicable Me 4, and there's a vending machine in the background. Dad, there's a vending machine in the background. Or if it's like the Taylor Swift song, we're listening to it in the car last summer, and it's her song "Cruel Summer," and like 48 seconds into that song, there's a verse where she says, "With the light of the glow of the vending machine hits your face" or something like
Okay.
that. And
Okay.
then they went crazy, like in the back seat of the car, "Dad, vending machine!" So like, that's the stuff that really moves me, man, and that's what motivates me every single day. And yeah, it's just that's been so great for me to experience, this past year is the impact of what it had on the kids. Because even when I was talking to other successful type people and just anybody actually,
Hmm.
and they would always reminisce about, hey, I used to go with my dad when he used to be a painter here, or when my dad used to buy this, and they get those little doses of real life experience, at such a young age. And that's what I really wanted to instill in them.
Yeah, it's really cool because it's an example of a business that is super easy to understand. Okay, buy something for $1, sell it for two,
Yeah.
and oh wait, I didn't have to be there to make that sale. Like,
Oh, dude.
that's like that little flip that can switch from like grow up, go to school, get a good job, and trade time for money. It's like, well, here's this little fork in the road. I think it's really interesting that,
I
and it's
was,
cool that you're exposing to them at a young age.
yeah. Yeah, no, thank you. And I was so addicted when I first got into this business. I would be I would be refreshing my sales reports weekly. I mean not weekly. I mean like every like hour. Like
Oh
it
yeah,
was so obsessive because I was so new to it. I would wake up in the morning, oh my God, how much did we make overnight? And
yeah.
it's awesome because like in the city, some of these kids, they're going out for Halloween night or St. Patrick's Day. Like I know Saturday night between 1 and 4 a.m., that thing's going to be cleared out at these luxury apartments because these kids are just going to go back and just wipe it out, So,
Yeah, hit refresh on the reports or pull. Yeah, it's great.
yeah.
Any big surprises? Surprises or mistakes? We'll tee it up like that.
Yeah, just like I said in the beginning, just make sure when you're qualifying that location, make sure you're asking all the questions. Make sure you're figuring out how many people are working there, what's the times that they're working there. Just quantify that. Don't assume a second shift is the same as the first shift, like me.
Okay.
You know, and then don't overthink it. Like I come from a real estate world that's always says like location, location, location. Same thing here with vending, but it's foot traffic, foot traffic, foot traffic. So if there's going to be foot traffic and there's going to be people that are going to be walking by it, there are going to be sales. So just make sure that you are very conscious of the foot traffic, that is there.
Very good. What's next for you? What are you excited about this year? Where do you want to take it?
if you asked me 15 months ago if this is where I was going to be at, I would be like, you're nuts. There's no way I would be here. So my goal is to be at $100,000 per month. I'm going to reassess the business and see if I want to go ahead and double down or triple down and then grow it to a 200 or 300,000 or for even a $400,000 a month business. Yeah. So like these are the things that
some serious equity involved at that point. Now you're talking about a multi-million dollar valuation.
Yeah. So like these are some of the things that I'm like tossing around and going around about. So I'm trying to think, where do I want it to go? Because I just don't want it to get it too big where it pulls me away from my family. My stocker, my guy that I hired, he only had taken off 4 days in 6 months. So great hire that I had. But he was sick in January and he had the flu or whatever. So I had to wake my butt up and go out there and pick and stock and do it. And it sucked. It just did. It sucked, and, but my kid, he had a basketball practice. His first basketball practice started at 4 p.m. and I wasn't missing it. So I told my wife, I go, I'm going to wake up at 2 a.m., go do the route, pick all the stuff to make sure that I'm back in time. And you're going to have to take care of the kids in the morning. She still works. She's a public school teacher out here in the western suburbs for 22 years. And she's like, Yep. She goes, I'll do it. I'll take care of the kids that morning. You go out and do it. And so it's been good. Like, 'cause to have a supportive partner like that has been like, I wouldn't be here without her, and with her support and just having the sacrifices in some of those days where I had to get out there and do it and hustle and not come home till late because maybe the machine was delivered and the machine was acting up and it wasn't working the right way. And I'm on the phone with customer support till 9 o'clock at night and she's handling the kids and putting them to bed. So, it's, there's Murphy's Law for sure. Yeah. No matter what.
Absolutely. Yeah. Whenever you're moving bulky technology, giant machines around, physical inventory, there's people involved. There's things are going to happen, but that's part of being a business owner, and you figure it out as you go. So this has been awesome. Anthony, I really appreciate you spending some time with us and schooling us on the rapid growth vending model here at Chicago. H&HVending.com. You can find them over there. Let's wrap this thing up with your number one tip for Side Hustle Nation. This does not have to be vending specifically related. This could be whatever entrepreneurial wisdom you'd like to impart.
You are going to experience some adversity, but you're going to have to push through it. And if you push through it and persevere, you will be successful. If you're thinking about a certain job that you're at and you want to, hey, I need a change or I need to do this, I tell somebody, jump and make the jump and go ahead and do it. And push forward and, try to make it happen. So that way down the line, you don't have any regrets, and say, hey, I should have tried this. I should have did this. Just go out there and try it. And then you'll leverage yourself to make sure that you're successful, and it'll happen. You'll just have to push through it.
That's right. Keep your risks low, keep your upsides high, and go to town. Again, H&HVending.com. Awesome episode. A couple takeaways from me. You just alluded to this. Hey, real estate is, the rule is location, location, location. In this business, hey, foot traffic, really similar to this location. How many people are going to be having exposure to this machine? How many people, a certain percentage of those people are going to buy something if you stock it right and figure out the right product mix there. And the other side of it is, on the surface, hey, buy the thing for $1, sell it for $2. Simple, but on the backside of that is it's a sales machine, right? How do we, get in front of the decision makers? How do we do that consistently? How do we turn one lead into 3? I really like that. Hey, well, the typical, moratorium on the Revshare is 6 months just because we got to pay back the machine. Like, I love this line. Hey, but we could shortcut that. We can cut that out if you intro me to 3 other buildings. Really like that. Building and nurturing that sales pipeline and recognizing that this is not their top priority, right? Do the follow-ups and make sure that you're top of mind, because there might be another Anthony knocking at their door, sending them an email, cold calling them to try and get her machine in. So trying to be top of mind on that front. We referenced episode 599 with Mike Hoffmann, the vendingpreneur, Mr. Passive on Twitter. I think he's got a discount for Side Hustle Show listeners on the vendingpreneur community, though I'm not positive on that. But if you mention Side Hustle Nation or Side Hustle Show, I know he'll take good care of you on that, and go back and listen to his original episode if you're interested in learning a little bit more. Big thanks to Anthony for sharing his insight. Big thanks to our sponsors for helping make this content free for everyone. As always, you can hit up sidehustlenation.com/deals for all the latest offers from our sponsors in one place. That is it for me. thank you so much for tuning in. If you're finding value in the show, the greatest compliment is to share it with a friend. So fire off that text message for me to that person in your life who is looking for creative ways to make extra money outside of their job. Until next time, let's go out there and make something happen. And I'll catch you in the next edition of The Side Hustle Show. Hustle on.